Good evening. The Municipality of Anchorage Platting Board Authority will now come to order. It is November 5th, 2020. It is 6:30 p.m. Due to concerns over large gatherings amid a COVID-19 outbreak, community members are strongly encouraged to provide testimony via email or telephone. Because of the federal, state, and local health department guidance and emergency measures, the Assembly Chambers is closed to the public. Platting Board encourages anyone wishing to provide public testimony via telephone to email planningtestimony@anchorageak.gov by 2 p.m. the day of the meeting. Please provide your name, phone number, and agenda item for which you wish to provide testimony. The subject line should read phone testimony. The secretary will phone you at the number you provide, and you will be given 3 minutes to provide testimony on an item on which you wish to speak, unless you are a representative of a group, whereon you're given 5 minutes. All documents listed on our agenda are available online at muni.org/watchnow. The Platting Board meets each month on the first and third Wednesday, except for this month where we got bumped to Thursday, as regular meetings. If the Platting Board fails to complete its agenda for a regular meeting, the board carries over the remainder of the agenda to the following meeting. The procedure by which the public may speak at this meeting is, after staff's presentation is complete on the public items, I will ask for public testimony on the issue. Persons wishing to testify will follow the time limits established in the Commission Rules of Procedure. The petitioners are given 10 minutes along with their representatives, and they are allowed to reserve a portion of their time for rebuttal. Representatives of groups, community councils, and PTAs are given 5 minutes each, and individuals have 3 minutes. When your testimony is complete, the board may ask you questions. You may only testify once on an issue unless the board questions you further. Any individual may have appeal rights relating to any action that this board takes. Appeal of this decision or any of the conditions is governed by Anchorage Municipal Code 21-11-304. The decision of the board at the scheduled public hearings becomes final 7 days after the calendar days after the date the decision is made on the record, unless a written request is submitted to the Planning Division prior to the expiration of the 7th day to prepare a written decision based upon the record made at the hearing, and the request is accompanied by a written notice of intent to appeal. Adoption of a written decision by the Platting Board becomes the final appealable decision. Within 20 days of the final appealable decision, an interested party must file with the municipal clerk either a written motion alleging new evidence or changed circumstances pursuant to Anchorage Municipal Code 21-11-503, or an appeal of the board's final appealable decision under AMC 2130. With that, may we have roll call?
Valerie Ritz. Present. Clayton Walker.
Present.
Kevin Cross.
Present.
Don Porter.
Present.
Mark Seward.
Present.
Jenna Welting.
Present.
Becky Lipson.
Present.
Karen McGillivray.
Present.
Thank you.
Next, we'll turn our attention to approvals. We have an action summary from Wednesday, October 7th, 2020. I have a motion to approve the action summary. Kevin Cross has moved and Valerie Ritz has seconded. Is there any opposition to the motion on the floor? Seeing and hearing none, the motion passes. Next, we'll turn our attention to the minutes of Wednesday, October 7th, 2020. May I have a motion to approve the minutes? Kevin Cross has moved to approve and Valerie Ritz has seconded. Are there any additions, corrections, or modifications that need to be made to the minutes as presented? Is there any opposition by the board to approving the minutes? Seeing and hearing no opposition, the motion to approve is passed. Next, we'll turn our attention to special order of business, disclosures. Are there any disclosures for tonight's business?
Mark Seward requests to speak.
Please proceed, Mr. Seward.
In case S12545 Canyon View Estates, I need to recuse myself as I was not present at the preliminary hearing, and I'm not familiar with that case.
Thank you. Does he need to actually recuse him, leave the room? Okay. Do we need a motion in order directing him to leave? Okay. Are there any other disclosures that need to be made this evening?
This is Karen McGilvery. Permission to speak.
Yes, Ms. McGilvray.
In the case of S12545, I was not present on the initial hearing on May 20th, 2020, so suggesting I recuse myself.
Okay. It's just a matter of procedure. How is it that we're going to let her know to return to the room if she just won't participate? Because, okay. Okay. Are there any other disclosures? Seeing and hearing none, we will now turn to special order of business case S12545 Canyon View Estates with a request to reopen the public hearing due to new evidence.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to read the memorandum that was in front of you, and then that way the record can reflect all the correct code citations. So on May 20th, 2020, the Platting Board held a public hearing accepting oral testimony and closed the public hearing with no action taken in the case. And then on June 3rd, 2020, the Platting Board considered the information and testimony presented both written and oral. The Platting Board denied a motion to reopen the public hearing and approved case S12545, which is the Canyon View Estates subdivision, lots 1 through 27, and tracks A, B, and C as a 60-month phasing plan. However, the Platting Board denied the request for vacation of 3 public use easements and denied variances to AMC 2108-030K2, which is dimensions to exceed the lot width to depth ratio of 1/3 for lots 2 through 8 and lot 14 and 15. Also AMC 2108-050H4, pedestrian facilities trails, to provide easements or construct trails, pathways, or walkways. The summary of action was approved by the board on August 5th, 2020, and on September 16th, 2020, the Platting Board approved the findings of facts. On August 24th, 2020, members of the public filed with the municipal clerk a written motion alleging new evidence or changed circumstances pursuant to section AMCR 2111-503. And you have the attached party's interest motion for rehearing. So the procedures, as the chair had read for AMCR 2111-503, new evidence, changed circumstances, are found. It's A and B. And it's under B, it says, upon filing the motion under this section, the board shall expedite its consideration of the motion and determine whether to rehear or reopen the matter. The board shall reopen the public hearing or rehear the previously decided if the board determines that the alleged new evidence or changed circumstances would substantially change the decision of the board, and that the person alleging the new evidence acted promptly and with diligence in bringing the information to the board's attention. There's also C and D, which is if the board holds a rehearing, it shall determine the extent to the subject matter to be presented and shall indicate the limitations on the public hearing. And D, a decision made by the board as the result of a motion or rehearing under this section is not an initial decision pursuant to subsection A above, and subsequent motions alleging new evidence shall be automatically rejected by the municipal clerk without hearing or reconsideration by the board. So for tonight, the Platting Board must decide whether to grant Joan Priestley et al., parties of interest, Their request for rehearing alleging new evidence or changed circumstances. The claim, as stated in the attached motion, is that the board's denial of the vacation request and variances has created significant new circumstances that necessitate extensive changes to the design of the plat when compared to the original subdivision plat. Therefore, the applicant should apply for a new preliminary plat and return to the board as a public hearing. I'll happy to answer any questions you may have. And we can go on record and say Dave Whitfield, the planning manager, is here as well.
Are you aware of any prior rulings that this board has made with respect to reconsideration of findings of fact based on changed circumstances?
Through the chair to the board, no, I'm not.
Thank you.
Permission to speak.
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield, based on your professional experience, what is your opinion as far as the denial of the variances? How substantial is this change to the petitioner's request? I guess I have my own personal opinion, but from yours, I'd like to hear yours.
I'm not able to hear what is being said on the microphone. This is Don Porter.
Yes, Don Porter, you said you're not able to hear what's being said on the microphone?
Right,
okay.
between the extra stuff that was going on, and it's very quiet from time to time.
Mr. Porter, can you hear me?
I can hear you now pretty good.
Okay, very good. My apologies. Through the chair, Mr. Cross, the planning department's opinion of this matter is, at this point in time, irrelevant. This is a matter to be considered by the Platting Board, and the planning department is not going to take a position in this case. Sorry.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
I think what we should do is to start with a motion to approve, and then we can discuss and make our findings on the record about why we think that the motion should be approved or not approved. So I have a motion to approve the motion to the request to reopen the matter. Kevin Cross has moved to reopen the hearing based on new evidence and changed circumstances. And Valerie Ritz has seconded. My experience on new motions for new evidence is that the evidence had to not be in existence when the motion was being heard in the first place. And changed circumstances have to be something beyond what was in existence at the time. In this case, the people requesting to reopen were providing testimony to not allow variances. Those variances were not allowed. And so the testimony that they would offer would be offered for the purpose of not allowing the variances. All of that evidence was already in place at the time of the hearing, and therefore it's not new. And I'm not certain exactly what they could hope to accomplish by reopening the matter, in as much as they obtained the relief they were requesting, which was deny the variances. And with respect to our ruling, I don't believe that they can look to our ruling as a basis for saying that that is a changed circumstance. It would have to be something that has happened since the ruling with respect to factual changes of the premises, stuff that's been approved near it, changes in regulation, changes in statute, and I don't see that that's been presented in the motion. All of the references that are in the support appear to me to be from the Platting Board meeting itself and from the evidence that was presented at the Platting Board.
If I may, Mr. Chair,
Yes, you may.
I believe that the folks that are on the ridge line and on teams are having a little bit of a hard time hearing. So if those members that are present here tonight could talk directly into the microphone and as loud as possible, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on the board who wishes to speak?
Yeah, Kevin Cross, I would like to speak.
Go ahead, Mr. Cross.
Yes, actually, we discussed this, and we discussed opening it back up to the public for this exact reason, that, I'm looking at the name of the individual who filed this, Mrs. Priestley. Because I don't know if you guys recall, there was, I think, 24 individuals that spoke concerned about this project to some degree, and then obviously there was a lot of changes. And I don't recall that it was unanimous. I remember it being kind of a split decision on whether or not we open this back up for public hearing. And I mean, yeah, I understand the concern. This is a contentious development, to say the least. And it's had some substantial changes. My position has not changed since we voted on this back in May, which was to allow the public to readdress their concerns given the gravity of the changes. So I would vote that there's enough new evidence. Obviously, not only did I feel that way then, but I still feel that way now. And now we have we have the public speaking that they obviously feel that way as well. So I'm inclined to support this. I think when you have 24 individuals who are extremely concerned about development and properties that are adjacent to them, when the petitioner is asking not for 1, 2, but 4 different variances, and it changes everything from driveway layout onto a major artery, I'm inclined to give the public their due process to allow them to speak in regards to these changes and make sure that their concerns are being adequately addressed.
Thank you, Mr. Cross. With that, I'd have you turn to page 2 and look at item C. And with that, if we reopen it, one of the things that we're supposed to identify is the extent and to what extent the subject matter will be allowed to be presented, and with D, what new evidence or changed circumstances we're going to consider. The third item on there is item number 1, which is that the new evidence or changed circumstances has to substantially change the decision the board would make. Can you speak to those 3 items for me?
Yeah, let's look at the 4 different variances that were denied. 1, a denial of a request for a vacation or elimination of the public use easements. So we denied vacation of public use easements. 2, a denial of the variance for dimension lots to exceed depth of weight. So we changed the variance to the lot sizes have changed. Denial of the variance from AMC pedestrian facility trails to provide walkways. So now we have walkways and trails that have to be, so we're talking lot dimensions, we're talking pathways and trails, we're talking vacation of easements. What's left is my question. It seems to me like it's a completely different, if I came to you with a plat and I said, well, it's all good except for easements, size of lots, and pedestrian walkways, you would probably wonder, well, then go back and do your homework and come back. So I guess correct those, provide a plat that is in accordance with these variances, and come back and see us. If it was as simple as maybe a walkway, or maybe, hey, we had a couple lots, but it just seems to me like the gravity of the variances does necessitate a significant change. A change enough that a new plat with the corrections should have the public eye who it affects have some sort of testimony. And unfortunately, there's not a provision that says it's a certain percentage. It's up to us to determine if we feel as if it's an adequate enough change. And I feel the same way I did when we denied this back in May or whenever it was. I thought it was a significant enough change then. I still feel the same way now.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the board who wish to speak?
Just Don Porter, permission to speak.
Don Porter, you have the floor.
I have to admit I'm a bit confused. The one issue that I'm looking at is, and I guess this is a question to anybody that could answer it, is would we have a plat that would be responsive to the direction of the board, denial of variances, and to review as part of this discussion? It doesn't seem like we would.
Through the chair, Mr. Porter, if you requested that the petitioner go back, redesign the plat in accordance with the denials, and bring a revised plat back, then that would be your direction, and they'd be required to do that.
Okay.
I guess we should call the vote. Unless there is anyone else on the board who wishes to speak or be heard on this issue.
This is Jackie Lipson.
Yes,
Can you restate the vote?
I don't know what we're
The-
voting on.
Yeah. I just wanted clarity as to the language of what is being voted on. And I guess before I make that request, I do have one comment. I remember this action in our multiple discussions on the subject matter. The one thing I think this situation may present for some board members a unique situation in that is anyone getting feedback? Sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing myself.
You sound good on my end.
Okay, great. So I do think this is somewhat of a unique situation in that there were 4 variances that were immediately withdrawn, if my memory is correct, at the time that the case was raised. I am concerned about setting a dangerous precedent in terms of when developers come in or petitioners come in. I do think they should have the right to withdraw certain variance requests that they've made. I think those decisions to withdraw those requests are at times based on pre-meeting discussions that they've held with community members and reflect at times that they've listened to what the community has had to say and made the decision to not potentially push their luck or just modify their plat. So there's no cut and dry rule that I would be proposing, that it's okay to delete 3 variances, but not okay to walk in and immediately withdraw 4 variances. But I do think everyone should be conscientious of not wanting to set that precedent.
Thank you. Does that raise any issues for any of the other board members?
Kevin, I'd like to speak as you go to that. I agree with Becky, and that's why we address these individually. And that's why we look at the merits of the case and the packet that's been submitted by the public. I don't think that there's, I think in this particular, it is a unique circumstance. Regarding the size of the development, the amount of public testimony, and those things speak to the fact that this is not, that it is a unique circumstances that we're having to deal with. And that when you're dealing with these unique circumstances, particular things in light of great public concern, they sometimes require extra handling.
Yeah, my basic position is on a motion to reopen, resubmitting previously provided evidence and reasserting previously stated facts does not meet the requirements for a motion to reopen. Motion to reconsider, you're not entitled to add any additional facts. You have to live with the record, but there you have to point out and show how we have applied the law or policy incorrectly. I don't think that that has been done in this case either. So I would not be voting in favor of the motion. Not hearing anyone else to speak on either in favor or against the motion, I'll go ahead and call the vote at this point.
I'll do it. Becky Lipson.
I am still, can someone just restate the motion so I know exactly what the motion is we are voting on?
We're voting on the motion to reopen the hearing based on new evidence and changed circumstances.
Thank you for restating it. I will vote in favor.
Becky, Kevin Cross here. I want to make sure it's very clear. It's as to request a recurring alleging new evidence or a change of circumstance, not and.
Yeah, that's correct. Becky, you can go ahead.
Well, before we vote, I think we need to have a discussion about what the scope of the rehearing of evidence would be. We don't have that. I apologize. I should have asked for discussion, for permission to talk. But as I understand this.
Yeah, for the record, that was Don Porter's comments, and his basic position is that, as stated, we'd also need to follow up with a second motion if we voted in favor of this, because at that point we would have to identify what the changed circumstance and new evidence is and what the scope of our hearing would be on a reopening.
Through the chair to the board, you would need to decide that first before you could not approve the reopen. You could not find evidence that there is new evidence or changed circumstances, reopen the public hearing, and then decide what you were going to hear at that hearing. You have to decide first.
Okay. In that respect, I guess if we're going to vote to reopen, we need to identify what we're considering is new evidence or what we're considering are the changed circumstances warranting a reopening.
Through the chair to the board, if I could suggest that you modify the motion to state that the motion obviously be in the positive, that there is new evidence, changed circumstances, and that you're reopening the public hearing to address X, Y, and Z.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion.
I presume that's a motion to amend the one on the floor?
First is, yes, to amend the motion that's on the floor.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Regarding case S12545, I'm requesting, let's see if I can, let's word this properly. I move to request a rehearing alleging change of circumstances regarding the denial from the June 3rd, 2020 meeting of denials A, B, and C, which was the denial of the request for the vacation of the public use easements, a denial of the variance from AMC lot dimensions, and the denial of the variance for pedestrian facility trails provide walkways, stating that these three changes were substantial enough to dictate a change in circumstances and therefore review it back to public testimony. And therefore, our new evidence will be changes to the petitioner's request based on, or information changes based on these denials. Does that make sense? I mean, it's pretty wordy.
And do we have a second for the motion to amend?
This is Becky. I will second.
And Becky Lipson has seconded the motion. With that, is there any further discussion on the motion? Ron? Is there any opposition to the motion on the floor? Seeing no opposition to the motion on the floor, the motion to amend is approved. Is there any discussion on the amended motion?
Well, not having a staff summary and position on this discussion. This is Don Porter.
Thank you, Don Porter. You can proceed.
There's a decent amount of information here to review, but it appears to me, I can't understand from what I've read already that whether the folks that are asking for the rehearing want the variances or if they don't. And if they don't want the variances, then the person drawing up the plat has to meet code. And that was, as I remember, our direction, is that they had to draw a plat up that met code. Now, maybe the new information is that the plat was not responsive to code in the first place, and so they don't actually know what the plat looks like. And I don't know what the plat looks like either, from the sounds of it. I'm just opening that for discussion.
Request to speak.
Say again your name?
Jana Welping.
Yes, Jana, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to be in favor of this motion because I think Don kind of summed it up. You know, the public doesn't know what this plat looks like. We don't know what this plat looks like because there's just been so many changes, and I think it really is the change of circumstance. So I'm interested in giving the public and the applicant time to, you know, present this to us so we can make a better and fuller decision. So I'm going to be a yes vote.
Thank you. Are there any other board members wishing to weigh in?
Permission to speak?
Yes,
Don
sir.
Porter?
Don Porter.
As Dave Whitfield brought up, we can make a condition that the petitioner actually draw up the plat that would be responsive to the code. Right?
I'm not aware of any evidence that the plat that was drawn up wasn't to code that we already voted on.
Well, in reading this discussion, they're making note that there would be 5 or 7 lots that would be removed and changes, and that there would be a pathway that would be added.
How was, I don't see how they have authority to change the plat other than as we previously approved it without coming back to the board for a motion.
Well, none of that was shown on the plat.
Through the chair to the board, I think what board member Don Porter is saying is that the denial of the variances and vacations substantially changes the design of the plat. And because the Platting Board has not seen that plat, that it should come back with a design that complies with the code and denial of those vacations and variances. That's what I believe he's saying.
Through the chair.
That is exactly what I'm saying.
This is,
I mean, they say it in bold letters. Therefore, this is a quote from the packet. Those 4 variances and 3 vacations were all absolutely essential to create a plat with 27 lots and no trails. By denying the requests for all the variances and all the vacations that they needed, the Platting Board itself has created significant new circumstances that necessitate extensive material plat changes. As explained below, these new changes are such a magnitude that they negate and make obsolete the present plat application. These new changed circumstances are sufficient to require the Hultquist to just start over and submit an entirely new and substantially different plat plan. This new plat can also be analyzed and commented upon by interested citizens in a new public hearing, of course. That is what I believe they are asking. To reopen it and make them draw up a new plat that doesn't take into account any of the 4 variances or 3 vacations.
Thank you. Kevin Cross.
thank you. You know, exactly. I agree with Don. I agree with what Mr. Whitfield so succinctly said in his very articulate manner. And to speak to your point, Mr. Walker, you said, you know, they came with a plat. We denied the variances, but they're going to go back and make changes. But they're going to make changes, and it meets the code. Well, my question is, as long as then why have us? As long as their plat meets code, why are we even here then? If anybody can go through the board or go through Whitfield's Platting Board and then come up with something that meets code, even if it's 100 acres, well, if it meets code, why even have us approve it? It meets code. I think when there's substantial change, that's why we're here. And in this particular case,
When they meet code, we approve them as action summaries.
open to public testimony.
No public testimony in the action summaries. We just make a motion and make it put on the record, and we, it's the ones where we're vacating things, where we're doing exceptions, where we're providing waivers and taking testimony. That's why we're here. And then anytime the municipality does anything, whether it meets code or not, it's on for public hearing also. So there's a variety of reasons why we're here. But
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying.
But
But in this case, since they're not asking for any variances, would it have even gone to public testimony?
if they hadn't asked for any variances and they hadn't asked for any
Because there's a no question.
exceptions,
Through the chair, yes, the number of lots that were being created would have required a long plat that would need to be approved by the Platting Board. So regardless of whether there was a vacation, regardless of whether there was a variance, it would have required the Platting Board to take action.
Thank you, that was my understanding. In which case, if we're saying as long as it meets code, it doesn't need to be readdressed, then we negate our, then we're,
Is everyone weighed in and ready to vote on the motion on the floor? Make any additional refinements to the motion on the floor?
Well, this is Don Porter.
Yes, Mr. Porter.
I would like to make a motion that the applicant bring forward as part of this rehearing a plat that is drawn up that does not include any of the assumption of any of the variances that were denied.
that's what would happen with the current.
Well, I think that we need to, I think how we've got the motion so far is we have identified reasons that we're saying that there's been changed circumstances or new evidence, and which gives us jurisdiction to reopen. And we have the part about reopening, but we don't have the part about directing the applicant to proceed with giving us a plat based on the rulings made at the prior hearing. His amendment is to simply add to the end of the existing motion the requirement that the applicant provide a plat with the, in compliance with our prior order, so that the public will be in a position of weighing in on the development.
Well, I guess I sure hope if we open it up to public testimony, they come prepared, because they're going to have to represent their case.
Is there a second on Don Porter's motion?
Kevin Cross, I second.
And Kevin Cross has seconded the motion. Any discussion? Any opposition to the motion? Seeing and hearing no opposition, the motion to amend the amended motion is passed. With that, I think we'll now call the vote on the amended motion. And it appears the motion, I guess not everybody doesn't have a control machine in front of them.
You're going to call a roll call?
Yeah, we're going to do the roll call. Thanks.
Ms. Lipson?
Yes.
Chair Walker?
No.
Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Ms. Welteam?
Yes.
Mr. Cross?
Yes.
Ms. Ritz?
No.
The motion failed. Well, we needed 5 positive votes with the 2 recusals. So the motion to reopen has failed with respect to case S12545 Canyon View Estates.
So, question, is that because there's only, is that considered a short board?
No, we had 6, short board is at 5. Short board is when 5, we had 6 here. Why is it that with only 2 noes, 4 doesn't make it pass? Because it takes 5 yeas to pass.
Okay. I didn't know, because if it's like, if you have a couple recusals and you have a short board, I know our petitioners get a request to say, hey, listen, we're not short, so. Okay, otherwise we would give them that option. All right, thank you.
Actually, it should have been 4. It should have been 4. Because 2 recusals. It should have been 4.
1 minute for rules review.
Through the chair, while we're waiting, what is all the noise coming from the microphone? Is there somebody there at the, or is there somebody on the line that's having background noise?
I don't see anybody in the room. We seem to only have one microphone on at a time. So I would guess maybe someone online. If you can mute your phone until your opportunity to speak is on.
I was wrong. Because it's 4 since 2 recusals.
Thank you.
Constitution, so there's 4 positive. So it passed.
Okay, after rules review, with a 4-2 vote, and 4 yeas to 2 noes, the motion is actually passed. So the matter will be reopened, and you please notify the affected parties.
Jeez. I screwed up again.
Next, we get to turn our attention to case S12577. Well, may the record reflect that we're requesting people to return to the room. Mr. Seward and Ms. McGilvray. I think Ms. McGilvray is back online, and we're waiting for Mr. Seward to come in the room.
That button.
May the record reflect that Mr. Seward is back in the room, and Ms. McGilvray, are you there?
I am, thank you.
Thank you. We will now take up the matter of case S12577, Overlook Estates Edition 3, lots 1 through 28. I see a request for postponement. May I have a motion to approve the request for postponement? Kevin Cross, would you please state your motion?
Yes, in the case of S12577, Overlook Estates, lots 3, 1 through 28, move to postpone notification to the January 6th, 2021 Platting Board hearing.
Thank you, and Valerie Ritz has seconded the motion. Is there any opposition to the motion on the floor? We'll take roll call on a vote.
Ms. Lipson?
Aye.
Chair Walker?
Yay.
Mr.
Yes.
Porter?
Yay, sorry.
Ms. Welty?
Yes.
Ms. McGillivray?
Yes.
Mr. Cross?
Yes.
Mr. Seward?
Yes.
Ms. Ritz?
Yes.
Thank you.
And next we'll turn our attention to case S12579, matter of Stephen and Bonnie Gorel. May we have staff's presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a request to remove plat note number 5 from plat 7441, Alyeska Basin subdivision number 6. Plat note number 5 reads as follows. A 20-foot wide easement located 10 feet on each side of the center line of existing creeks within the subdivision is hereby dedicated for the purpose of protecting and preserving said watercourses. So the applicant asserts that this plat note is not necessary because at the time of the construction, the structure did violate the plat note. However, current code provides a mean for determining non-conforming structures legal while providing the protection to the stream that the original plat required. AMC 2107-020B stream water body and wetland protection requires greater protections for the stream and specifies allowed uses within the streamside zone. The house and decks were legally established prior to October 9, 2018, and are considered legal conforming structures in accordance with AMC 2113-045A. Removal of the plat note would not reduce protections that are in place of the stream, nor would it apply a less restrictive code to the property. The nonconforming status letter finds that the structure is legally nonconforming in regard to current code and in violation of the plat note. Removing the plat note eliminates the violation and does not place burden on the property owners. 123 public hearing notices were mailed on September 17, 2020. At the time of the writing, no public comments received, and the Girdwood Board of Supervisors supported the action by a vote of 5 in favor and 0 opposed. For staff analysis in the criteria, staff has found that condition A has been met. Conditions that required the plat note have changed because the protections of water courses that AMC 2107-020B establishes, such as stream setbacks, were not previously applied to streams in the municipality of Anchorage. So that now provides protection of streams, and while 2113-045A allows for existing structures and uses that would be non-compliant continue because of the undue burden their removal would cause landowners. And that was if they existed prior to October 9, 2018. So the code specifies the streamside zone extend 25 feet from the ordinary high water mark instead of 20 feet stated by the less restrictive plat note. So therefore, the need for the plat note has been negated as the current code extends further, and removal of the plat note would not reduce protections of the stream. Condition B, staff finds that that has been met. Removal of the plat note will not have a negative effect on neighboring properties. The owners have stated that in 37 years of ownership since the construction, the encroachment has not caused flooding or impedance of the stream to any of the adjacent properties. There have been no documented disturbances of the stream. Removal of the plat note would not reduce protection of the stream or apply a less restrictive code to the property. And none of the reviewing agencies, including Watershed Management Services, have any objection to the removal of the plat note. Condition C, staff finds that that has been met. Plat 7441 would continue to meet the approval criteria for subdivisions in section 2103 200C9 if plat note number 5 is removed. The existing subdivision still facilitates the orderly and efficient layout and use of the land to the maximum extent feasible. Even without the restrictive plat note as streams, water bodies and wetlands are protected in the code under AMC 2107-020B. So the department recommendation is to approve the removal of the restrictive plat note number 5 from plat 7441, subject to recording a resolution against the property. And I'm happy to answer any questions, and I believe the petitioner's representative is online as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And do we have any questions for staff? Seeing no questions, may we have the petitioner's representative?
Good evening, this is Connor Scher of ZRX. Can you hear me?
Did you say your name is Stephen Gorel?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. You may proceed. Did you want to reserve some of your time for rebuttal?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Thank you.
Are you still with us, Mr. Gorel?
Yes, I am.
Yes, you may go ahead and proceed when you're ready.
I believe we have someone else speaking on his behalf. This is Stephen's daughter.
Okay. Well, it sounds like we're having some technical difficulty.
Chair, this is Marco Zaccaro with Z Architects. I believe Connor was going to present on behalf of the petitioner. Connor Schur.
Okay, that's fine. Conshur can go ahead and... Are you with us?
Good evening. Yes, this is Connor Schur with the Architects. Can you hear me?
We hear you fine. Are you ready to proceed?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
So as the staff packet explains, the subject house in the subdivision was built in the 1980s, and at that time the agency responsible for approving it would have been the state, and as far as we can find, the construction and approval thereof was legal at the time in the eyes of the state. And so the adoption of the Title 21 section in regards to protecting natural resources such as the stream basically supplanted this plat note that had been in place from the plat. And these plat notes were pretty common at the time, especially in Girdwood, to offer protection to some of the streams there. And the new code in Title 21 provides a greater protection than those plat notes did, and at the same time offers a process for determining a structure to be legally non-conforming. If the plat note were not removed, the structure, in order to be brought into compliance, would have to have portions of the structure removed, including a deck and a chimney. Whereas the envelope and the footprint would be allowed to remain as is if the plat note were removed. In presenting to both the Girdwood Board of Supervisors and the Girdwood Land Use Committee, neither had any objection to the removal of the plat note. The questions that came up were in regards to what properties the removal would affect, and as far as I can determine, removing the plat note would affect the other streams platted in the subdivision, but again, those streams still have the protections offered under Title 21. There was also some questions about the use of the property afterwards. The reason that this case has come up is the property owner is seeking to sell the property, and in order to sell it, they were seeking a resolution of this issue. And so there's concern in Girdwood over the preservation of existing land uses. And so as far as I can understand, this case, and as I presented, this case doesn't change the allowed uses on the site or allow more uses than are currently allowed in code. So in closing, I will say that the removal of the plat note, while it does affect not only this property and the stream, but the other streams and several other properties in the subdivision, does not reduce the protection of those streams because of the adopted section of Title 21, which establishes the protection to a greater value, 25 instead of 10 feet, and measured from the ordinary high water mark, which is a greater width of stream measurement than was previously under the plat, and while at the same time providing a path for non-conforming structures that were legally established before the adoption of the code to remain with certain restrictions on their envelope and use. So I will end my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for staff, petitioner's representative? I have a question, and that is, the plat note requires 20 feet on either side of the center line, and the code provides for 25 feet from the ordinary high water mark, which is wider, correct?
Through the chair, yes.
This is Connor. Am I able to respond?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So the plat note reads that a 20-foot wide easement located 10 feet on each side of the center line of existing creeks within the subdivision, et cetera, for the purpose of protecting and preserving said water courses. And this establishes 10 feet on either side of the center line, whereas current code, AMC 210720B, provides 25 feet from the ordinary high water mark.
So if we vacate the current easement, or the current plat note, won't we also need to be granting a variance from the current code in order to keep them from being in violation of the code as it sits today?
Through the chair, Mr. Walker, no, because the stream protection setback ordinance was adopted after the structures were placed there. But I should say, after the structures were placed there, the plat note was placed, obviously, when the plat was approved and recorded prior to the structure. So by removing the plat note, you are, and assuming that, I should say, by removing the plat note, the structure was there and would be legally non-conforming because it existed prior to the adoption of the stream protection setback ordinance. So it would be legally non-conforming at that point. So no variance would be required.
Thank you for that clarification. Does that raise any other questions for petitioner's representative from the board?
I have no further questions at this time.
Who is that had a question? Oh. With that, we will go ahead and take public testimony.
Hello?
Good evening. Is this Mike Edgington?
Speaking.
Hi, Mike. This is the Platting Board calling for your testimony in case S12579.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone on the Platting Board for your time and dedication to these topics. My name is Mike Edgington, Edgington of Girdwood. I'm co-chair of Girdwood Board of Supervisors, the land use supervisor there, although I'm speaking in a personal capacity. I own the property 2 lots to the south, which is lot 20, which is slightly upstream of the subject property. And I just want to make a few short comments in support of the application. In the 4 years I've lived here, we've had no problems at all with obstruction to the stream from that particular property.
Can't hear it.
No issues of flooding at all.
Mr. Eddington, if I could, we want to have a good record of your presentation if we can. Could you speak more directly into the microphone or make sure you don't have any feedback in the space?
Is that any better?
Very much better.
Okay. Apologies. The microphone was slightly misplaced. Can I start from the beginning, or do you have?
Go ahead.
I will just repeat my beginning comments. This will be short. So for the record, my name is Mike Edgington, a Goodwood resident. I'm also co-chair of GBOS, Goodwood Board of Supervisors. So I signed the letter of non-objection you have in the packet. However, I'm speaking in a personal capacity. I own the property 2 lots to the south, which is slightly upstream of the subject property. In the 4 years I've lived here, we've had no problems at all with any obstructions downstream from the subject property. There've been no flooding issues or anything else coming from that direction. I was also involved in the stream setback ordinance, which offers far superior protection and actually also gives mechanisms, a good set of mechanisms for dealing with non-conformance. So I'd just like to say there are lots of properties across Goodwood that were built before land use code, and I would appreciate the board's consideration and acceptance of this application. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, does the board have any questions for Mr. Edgington? Seeing and hearing none, thank you, Mr. Edgington.
Thank you.
Do we have any other public testimony? With that, we will return to the petitioner's representative and for rebuttal. I believe you have 5 minutes.
This is Connor from Z Architects, the representative. I have no rebuttal at this time.
Did you say that was all of your rebuttal at this time?
I said I wish to make no rebuttal to the public comment.
Okay, thank you. With that, we will close the public testimony and the matter now rests with the board. May I have a motion in case S12579? Kevin Cross, would you please state your motion?
Yes, regarding Alaska Basin Number 6 subdivision, Block 22, Lot 22 on Plat 74-41. Move to remove the restrictive note number 5 from Plat 74-41 that states a 20-foot wide easement located 10 feet on each side of the center line of the existing creeks within the subdivision is hereby dedicated for the purposes of protecting and preserving said watercourses, subject to Condition A, recording a resolution against the property recognizing removal of the plat note.
Thank you. And Valerie Ritz has seconded your motion. Did you want to speak to your motion?
Yes, there are 3 criteria by which the staff is very well articulated by which an individual may remove the plat note. I will summarize, these are found on pages 2 and 3 of your packet, but more succinctly in item number in C, that Plat 7441 would continue to meet the approval criteria for the subdivision under subsection 2103-200C9 if plat note number 5 is removed. The existing subdivision still facilitates the orderly and effective layout and use of the land to the maximum extent feasible, even without the restrictive plat note, as streams, water bodies, and wetlands are protected under the Code AMC 21070220, which is the most important. I think it's also important to note that, this plat note, it's also creating, one thing that's not on here is it creates some undue burden on the homeowner. Having this on that plat and known can create title, financing, transfer issues in the future, and therefore we're also relieving an undue burden upon the property owner.
Thank you. Do we have any other findings from any other board members?
This is Don Porter.
Yes, Mr. Porter.
They have pointed out that in the staff packet that there's adequate protections provided, but also a process by which they can get the non-conforming structure to be acceptable. And this provides value both to the public and to the private owner.
Thank you. I would also make the findings that the 37 years of ownership, the stream has not been hampered or harmed by the structures as they've been there. And it has the support of the neighbors and the local board. Is there any other comments or findings the board wishes to make on this matter? Seeing and hearing none, I will call for a roll call vote.
Ms. Lipson?
Yay.
Chair Walker?
Yay.
Mr. Porter?
Yay.
Ms. Weltine?
Yay.
Ms. McGillivray?
Yay.
Mr. Cross?
Yay.
Mr. Seward?
Yay.
Ms. Ritz?
Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you, and the motion has passed. Are there any reports? Secretary? Any board member comments? Seeing and hearing none, we will now stand in adjournment. It is 7:41.